Our community has won over $320,000 in the last 3 months using our tools, our insight, and our information. This is We Want Picks. My name is Angelo, and I'm going to break down the entire UFC 293 fight card. I'm going to give you my picks, my predictions, and more importantly, my DraftKings plays. Let's take a look at that community success. $322,000 just playing DraftKings. This is not bets. This is only DraftKings fantasy. And week in and week out, they are putting up big time numbers. The last big ticket was this past weekend at UFC Paris. We have B Nasty. B Nasty put up a $51,000 DraftKings ticket. And his commentary is what makes this all worth it. He said, I really can't believe they allow you guys, meaning us, to offer these tools. I literally did my lineups this morning. I picked my main three and the optimizer built the rest. Thank you guys. I'll be in the chat on Tuesday. These are premium member tickets. These are people that have gone to WeWantPicks.com. They've clicked become a member. They've used the tools and they've won some very real money. Of course, we have the giant tickets, the $78,000, the $60,000, the $30,000, the $50,000, the $75,000. But we also have a whole bunch of $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, couple hundred, couple thousand. And that is the beauty of this. Depending on how you want to play, depending on what you want to do, we have information and breakdowns for you. Once you become a premium member, it's only $10 a month. Just go to WeWantPicks.com, click Become a Member. Once you become a premium member, you will have full access to everything, including our breakdowns. We're going to tell you who should be your core players in a cash lineup, who should be your core players in a large field tournament lineup, who the live underdogs are, who the leverage players are, who the fades are. We're going to give you ownership projections. Every Friday by 6 p.m., this cheat sheet is fully populated with ownership projections, scoring projections, and leverage plays. And we just so happen to have the best ownership projections in the game. I literally pay somebody to build these numbers out week in and week out. We have better numbers than Awesemo, better numbers than Roto Grinders, better numbers than all the other companies. I can't even remember their names. And why the numbers matter is they are preloaded into the optimizer. And you can now take the optimizer, click a few buttons, and it will build lineups for you. It'll build one lineup. It'll build 150 lineups. Be Nasty used this tool right here that I'm hovering over. He used this, he clicked a few buttons, and it spit out his $51,000 lineup. Guys, I don't know what else you need to hear. WeWantPicks.com, click Become a Member. It's only $10 a month, and it is not a coincidence that our premium members, our $10 a month community, has won over $320,000 in the last 3 months. That doesn't happen by accident. WeWantPicks.com, click Become a Member at the top. Let's go ahead and break this card down. It's not the best pay-per-view. It's kind of a weak pay-per-view. I mean, let's be honest. If you're from Asia Pac, right, that part of the world, then maybe this is a phenomenal pay-per-view, right? A lot of local names, a lot of people you've grown up watching and loving. But the reality is, yes, there's a title fight, but it's almost a made-up Make-A-Wish title fight for Sean Strickland because Dricus du Plessis wouldn't fight. And the rest of these fights, not one other fight on that card has any sort of title implications. There are some fun matchups. Should be a decent card. Let's find our spots. Let's make some money. We're going to break this whole thing down from the bottom to the top. And opening up the UFC 293 fight card, we have Kevin Jousset taking on Kiefer Crosbie. 2 UFC debuts. There's not going to be much to see here for this fight. But Kevin Jousset is actually a decent high-level judo guy, but he's that French-style fighter. He wants to be a stocky striker. He wants to slow the pace. He wants to react more than initiate. But he does have some solid judo. He is a straight-up weight bully. This dude is enormous, and he uses his size really well to slow you down, rack up control time, take you down, beat you up. Kevin Jousset is a talented guy. He is training on this side of the world, not France. But again, he's got that French style, reactionary, let you commit, then send something back type fighting. The only thing that separates him from the William Gomez's of the world is he will initiate some of those judo takedowns and throws. He's taking on Kiefer Crosbie. Kiefer Crosbie, another UFC debut. Kiefer Crosbie is very aggressive. This guy has kickboxing experience, boxing experience before he moved over to MMA. He is aggressive. He will come forward, he will swing for your head, and he will try to get it done. I love him for that. I love him for being aggressive and trying to finish fights. He's going to be far more aggressive than Kevin is, but he's also very hittable. He keeps his hands low. He overcommits. He gets too excited. Somebody as big as Kevin, somebody who can weather a storm like Kevin, somebody who can hold Kiefer against the cage like Kevin, can probably get it done. So when we talk about picks, we talk about DraftKings, they can be different. I like Kiefer to come across the cage, send his hands, and maybe catch Kevin, who is kind of hittable. But as far as DraftKings is concerned, the only way Kiefer's going to score any points is if he does connect and if he does put Kevin out. Kevin Jousset, he's got the judo, he's got the cage control, he's got the weight bully style. He could actually probably score decently at that $8,400 price point just by holding Kiefer against the cage or getting a few takedowns and racking up control time. So I'm not going to throw Kiefer in my lineup, and I may consider Kevin because of the upside with grappling and the fact that he's only $8,400. Then we have Shane Jung, and he's taking on Gabriel Fly Miranda. Shane Jung, he's out of the city kickboxing gym. That's going to be a theme here. A lot of these guys training with Izzy, training at that gym. Shane Jung is one of maybe 10 of those people on this card. But this guy's a solid striker. He likes to work forward. He'll use his jab to manage range, and he's going to control the center. He's constantly pumping that jab out there. And as soon as he has his opportunity, then he'll work in some combinations. He's more of a volume striker than a raw power guy, but he can get finishes. He can put you away because he is accurate and he does stay in your face. You're going to see he lost to Blake Builder. His striking actually didn't look good in that fight. His striking looked very stiff in that fight. But look at the time. There was a 2-year gap between these fights. So I guess it makes sense that he looked a little stiff. The guy hadn't fought in a couple of years. The reality is he's a very high-level striker. He's got mediocre takedown defense. But if he is taken down, he's got nothing to offer off his back. So hopefully for him, he doesn't get taken down, but he does have some takedown defense to try to keep that standing as long as possible. He's taking on Gabriel Fly Miranda. This guy's a very slick grappler. He's got nice takedowns. He has very much an old school BJJ guy, so he's going to work from position to position and look for submissions instead of a TKO. His problem is he's so comfortable. He's so good at jiu-jitsu. He'll pull guard. He'll roll around. Like he's a jiu-jitsu nerd. If you're working something and he's rolling with you, he has no problem to get fully swept and be on his back and then try to work from there. And at this point in MMA, it's getting harder and harder to just submit people off of your back, right? Where are submissions coming from? Top, scrambles more often than not. Not just like full guard in your back, let me throw something up. So Gabriel Miranda, high-level jiu-jitsu guy. He is coming off that loss to Benoit Saint Denis, but he came out guns, slinging, throwing his hands. He's a jiu-jitsu nerd, but he's not a pussy. Those are two very different things. So he wants to be grappling. He may butt scoot, but he's not afraid to throw his hands and get into a fight. This is a tricky fight to pick. I mean, the DraftKings has basically drawn a line in the sand and said Shane Jung should absolutely win this fight. The reason it's tricky is we got a striker versus a grappler. And Shane did look clueless in his last fight off of his back, but he did defend 6 takedowns, right? He gave up a takedown, but he defended 6 along the way. Gabriel's takedowns are not, they're decent takedowns, but he does tend to slow down, and I think he is going to struggle a little bit as the fight goes on with the cardio, right? Shane Jung fought Blake Builder in his last fight. Blake Builder will just keep coming. That guy's not going to slow down. He will set a pace for 15 minutes. Gabriel Miranda can't. So if he doesn't get the early knockdown, or the early takedown, and he doesn't have that early grappling success, I don't see him being successful after that. So for that reason, I like Shane Jung here. I'm not going to spend the money on Shane Jung. He just did not look good enough in his last fight to spend $8,600. I know a lot of people are high on Miranda, and his jiu-jitsu is fantastic. His hands are big and powerful, but he's not going to be able to come in reckless and make something happen, right? He's going to need to be calculated, get the takedown, and then work from there. Then we have Charlie Radtke, UFC debut, taking on Mike Mathetha, or Blood Diamond, as he is referred to everywhere else. Charlie Radtke is he's from Fort Myers, Florida. So it's like a city, but it's not like a city, right? He's at a gym, but it's not a gym. He's not at one of these big camps. He is making his UFC debut. He is flying to the other side of the world, and he is a big favorite here. I'm going to tell you right now, full fade on the big favorite for Charlie Radtke. He's an athletic grappler. He does lower his level. He does take nice shots. He immediately works for positions. He is controlled on the ground, and he can be dangerous on the ground. He hunts for submissions and transitions really well between those submission attempts. He does pull guillotines. He does chase, though. So he'll be looking for a submission. He'll chase. He'll get himself completely out of position while trying to find that finish. And that's what's going to worry me here, because he is fighting Mike Matheta or Blood Diamond. You're going to see two L's. Dude cannot win a fight in the UFC. But the first one was Jeremiah Wells. Very high-level guy, a very good fighter. We all know this. The second was to Orion Kosei. Orion Kosei is an athletic, good, well-rounded fighter. And this was like a decent fight, honestly. He put up 33 points. He had a minute of control time, landed 90 strikes and 63 significant strikes. He is 0-2 in the UFC, as I mentioned, but he is able to defend some takedowns. He defended 4 of Jeremiah Wells in this fight. He defended 5 of Orion Kosei's. And the reason that's so important is Blood Diamond is a very high-level kickboxer. He's got well over 100 kickboxing matches. He's really done successful, or he's had a successful career outside of an MMA cage, and now he's transitioning to MMA. If he was a clueless, had no idea what the hell to do kind of guy, I would avoid him like the plague. But he does defend takedowns. He can land big, hard, meaningful strikes, and he can put people away. For that reason, I actually will put Blood Diamond in my lineup to free up money. $7,100. I mean, he just put up 33 points with Orion Kosei. Obviously, you don't want to fight in your lineup to score 33 points, but if he defends a few takedowns and gets his hands going, Charlie Radtke is hittable, and he's not that good. I expected $9,100. I expect him to be a Division I national champion wrestler. That would warrant a $9,100 price tag. Not a UFC debut flying to the other side of planet Earth with decent takedowns, trying to take down a guy who has spent the last 5 years just working on defending takedowns. So Blood Diamond, big risk at $7,100, but if you're building a cash lineup and even some of your tournament lineups, you might want to throw him in there, because if he wins, he's going to score a ton of points. He's going to win, but there's no way he wins a decision. It will be finish. Or he loses. If he loses, I do think he would lose a decision. I don't think Charlie Radtke has the grappling of a Jeremiah Wells to get an actual submission. Then we have Nasrat Haqparast, and he's taking on UFC newcomer or Ultimate Fighter dropout Landon Quinones. Nasrat Haqparast, $9,500. He's a very expensive price point, and I'm probably going to have to fade him here. But he is very good. He's a very good striker. He's got good volume. He lands more than 5 significant strikes per minute with a really solid 78% takedown defense on average. When he can push the pace, when he finds a rhythm, he's a hard guy to beat. He just broke a 2-fight skid with a decision over John Makdessi. You'll see that here. He only scored 78 points, but he did have 2 takedowns. And that's what's a little interesting here. So when he came into the UFC, he was this big prospect. He's been in the UFC for a while, but okay, he lost to Held, but then he's got some good wins. Mark DeCasey, Silva was a good win. Munoz is a good win. That's a Division I wrestler. Rafa Garcia was a great win. And then Dan Hooker out-wrestled him, and then Bobby Green outworked him on the feet. So Nasrat, a little hit or miss with some of these fights, but the reality is he's a good striker who has volume, and we have seen him work in a couple of takedowns. He is taking on Landon Quinones. No data here. The guy just popped out of The Ultimate Fighter. He was on Conor McGregor's team. He's immediately being thrown into deep water. They're saying, hey, here's one of the better guys in the division. Good luck. Wish you the best. And he's going to categorize himself as a striker. If you ask Landon, what's your style? But he can be a slow starter. He can take a while to sort of gauge the rhythm. But what he does do well is work in takedowns. He will lower his level. He'll shoot a clean shot. They're not desperate. They're not pathetic. They're really well set up. And they're nice, clean wrestling shots. And once he gets on top, he's got good, heavy pressure. And, he can definitely have some success in the UFC. At this level, against a guy like Nasrat, probably not. Landon's going to lose this fight, so there's no way I'm going to throw him in my lineup because I don't even really see the upside. He doesn't have the power to knock out Nasrat. His wrestling's not going to be enough to hold him down and grind out a win. So I don't see Landon winning, so then the debate really becomes, do you think Nasrat can win by finish? Because the way he just won by decision, 78 points, I'm not spending $9,500 for 78 points. If you think he can win by finish, then maybe you want to throw the $9,500 at it, but I probably am not going to do that. Then we have Jamie Mullarkey. He is taking on John Makdessi. Jamie Mullarkey, every time I break him down, I say the same thing. He's a jack of all trades, a master of none. He's good at everything, great at nothing. He can strike. Is he insanely fast? No. Is he insanely technical? No. Does he have insane power? No, he's got power. Two of these wins were knockout. He's got power. Not great. Does he have wrestling? Yeah, he's got some takedowns. He's averaging about 3 per fight, something to that effect. He's working in takedowns. Are they great? No. Are they fast blast doubles? No. He's good at everything. He knows all the things, but he's not amazing at any one thing. He's not incredibly dangerous, but he is busy. He will work hard. And when he does get the takedowns going, he scores fairly well. 81 points here against Prado. He was $8,700, so 81 points isn't quite the celebration you want it to be. Obviously, he scored really well in those knockout wins. So the question becomes, do you think he could have that kind of success? Because he is fighting John Makdessi. John Makdessi is a very good striker. He's old, though. He's 38. But he's a good striker. I don't know why I interrupted myself to make sure you knew he was 8. Well, he's old. He's old. He's 38. He's 38. Anyway, John Makdessi is a good striker. He's got volume. He's got clean technique, and he has solid takedown defense. He's very technical, but he will rely on a pace. He likes to start his exchanges with his hand and then ends with low kicks. He's a short, compact guy. Movement is very, very important for him because he's got to work his way in and out of the range. Taking him down is hard because he's short and compact. He doesn't really have the power you would like to see out of a guy like him. Let's see when the last time he got a knockout was. All the way back in 2016 against Landon, who can be chinny. So, that was a loss. Let's keep going. When was his last win? Oh, Jesus. All the way back to 2015. 2015 was his last stoppage finish. He is a durable guy. Landon knocked him out. Holy gavanooch. Because Lando can be chinny. So if Lando's knocking you out, that's a problem. Anyway, I don't think John Makdessi wins this fight. I don't think he's worth the $7,300. So again, we are now in another weird situation where you have Jamie Mullarkey, who I think will win. Pretty confident he's going to get it done. He's $8,900. They've priced him like he's a lock. And I get it. He's younger. He's got the wrestling. But if he can't get his wrestling going and he's just in a technical kickboxing match, that could be a problem. I don't know. Jamie's going to be on the fence for me for the $8,900, but you're hard-pressed to find a fight where he was worth that money outside of these 2 knockouts. And knocking out Kama Worthy is not the same as knocking out John Makdessi. Literally, these were the only 2 fights where he was worth that money. So probably a fade for me in DraftKings for Jamie Mullarkey, but if he gets that wrestling going, hangs out on top, racks up control time, then he could be successful. But he still had 3 takedowns in these fights without the big boy points. Then we have Jack Jenkins taking on Chepe Mariscal. Jack Jenkins, he's a very solid striker. You're going to see all the takedowns. 5 takedowns in 2 fights if you include. I believe he had 11 takedowns or something absurd in his Contender Series fight. But if you include all of those takedowns, you rack him up, you're going to think that he's a grappler. He's not. He is a striker. He's got thunderous leg kicks, literally broke legs on the regional scene. Good technical hands. He's a very well-rounded guy. The wrestling is mostly offensive. He's got some decent takedown defense, but not great. Not good enough to completely keep him out of trouble because he is coming off this win over Jamal Emmers. He scored 64 points. He had a takedown. He lost that fight. And the odds on the fight, right? The fight ended. They have odds. You can bet on the fight for like 30 seconds to a minute before they actually read the card. The odds for Jamal Emmers, his opponent, were minus 1,700, meaning he was a 17-1 favorite to win that fight after the fight happened. And then they still gave the decision to Jack Jenkins. That's how poor of a decision it was. But Jack Jenkins has real good kicks, solid hands. He's a big, strong, tough, athletic guy that can wrestle as well. And he's very, very dangerous. This win over Don Shanis, he looked great in the win for the most part, but he did have a little bit of trouble off of his back at one point. He's taken on Chepe Mariscal. I absolutely love Chepe, or Jose, depending on what website you're looking at. This guy's going to come forward, and he's going to stay in your face. He's got college wrestling experience. He's a BJJ champion. He's a kickboxing champion. He has done all the things. He's achieved things at all levels. And he beat the brakes off of Trevor Peek at 155 pounds on short notice. But I still think he loses this fight. I totally get. I think he's a great underdog. And honestly, for $7,500 in DraftKings, you're going to need to have some exposure to Chepe Mariscal. 100% all day, every day. He's a phenomenal underdog. The fact that he's priced in the 7s is kind of crazy, and you definitely need to have exposure to him because he is a phenomenal wrestler, and we've seen Jack Jenkins sort of struggle on the ground. Because he'll stay in your face and he'll bomb away, because he's not just going to quit. I still think, all said and done, I still think Jack Jenkins probably wins this fight because of the leg kicks. I think he'll just take away the movement of Chepe. I think he'll stay in Chepe's face. I do think traveling that far may matter. Dropping weight, it was just 2 months ago that Chepe fought at 155. Now he's got to work his way back down, cut the weight, all the things. So, again, I think Jack Jenkins probably wins this fight. But if we're talking about building DraftKings lineups, you have a budget to work with. You're going to need to pick underdogs. Chepe is one of the best underdogs on this card, and the pricing on him is insane. He just put up 108 points in his last fight. He was a similar-sized underdog. Obviously, it was 8,000 in DraftKings, but the betting odds had him as a really tight underdog there. Chepe may be in my lineup, literally because I need the space to afford some people, but I do think Jack Jenkins wins. Just make sure you have some exposure to Chepe. Then we have Carlos Ulberg taking on Da Un Jung. Carlos Ulberg, one of my most confident favorites. He also, like everybody else, is out of that city kickboxing gym with Izzy and the rest of the crew. High-level kickboxer. He's done very well in the kickboxing world and then transitioned to MMA. He's a big guy. He's got incredible footwork, really good range management. His striking differential is impressive. 8-3. He's landing 8 strikes and only getting 3 in return. He has a 100% takedown defense, 100% takedown offense. You can see, look at this, 2 takedowns against Fabio Sharon. He only defended 2 takedowns in his career, so it doesn't really matter. But the guy's got such good footwork, such real power, and he's so athletic. He's absolutely blasting through people. His only loss was to Kennedy Nzechukwu, and he was dominating that fight, 146 strikes and significant strikes, meaning every single strike he threw was so hard they ruled it significant. It was all at range. That speaks to his footwork. And it was a second-round knockout, and he still landed that much. That tells you how well he was doing before he got clipped by the insanely powerful Kennedy Nzechukwu. He's taking on Da Un Jung. I'm going to scroll down. You're not going to see it all, but this stretch, this is 5 fights in what was a 16-fight unbeaten streak stretch. And for a while there, Da Un Jung was like, whoa, how good is this guy? But then he ran into Dustin Jacoby, and then he just got outworked by Devin Clark. The reality is he's a well-rounded guy. He's a technical boxer. He's got solid wrestling, good clinch work. He is sort of in a weird spot because he's beaten some people, he's lost to some people, and he's just trying to figure out where he fits in the mix, because are we finding out that maybe he's not that good and the Kennedy knockout was sort of luck, and the William Knight thing, we found, William's not there anymore. Sam Alvey's not there anymore. Rodriguez is not there. All of a sudden, that 16-fight unbeaten streak doesn't look so good. But Da Un Jung is a very well-rounded guy. What worries me in this fight, the one thing that worries me is this William Knight fight. You'll see this number, 8 takedowns. He took down William Knight 8 times. William Knight is a wrestler. He wrestled most of his life. And he's insanely powerful. And Da Un Jung was just pushing that dude around, doing whatever the hell he wanted to. 12 minutes of control time with 8 takedowns. Obviously, 8 takedowns means that William kept standing up on him, but that's what worries me. If he comes out with a wildly aggressive wrestling game plan, he could have success, but I think Carlos Ulberg gets it done, and he's got power. I think he gets it done with the power. I will spend the $9,200. Then we have Anton Turkalj taking on Tyson Pedro. This is most likely a pick your side fight. Anton Turkalj is a very aggressive, busy guy. He's going to come forward. He's going to stay in your face. He's athletic. He's going to work in takedowns. He's going to work in strikes. He's going to do all the things. I said before, 11 takedowns on the Contender Series for Jack Jenkins. It's Anton Turkalj. He's the one. He had 11 takedowns in his Contender Series fight. And if he can get the takedowns going, he just stays busy. He doesn't slow down. He doesn't gas. He had 5 takedowns and a reversal against Vitor Petrino. Put up 59 points in a loss. That's a quality loss. He is the very, very slight favorite in this matchup. The odds on this fight have been flipping back and forth. Anton Turkalj is a well-rounded guy who's had a tough beat. Vitor Petrino's kind of a beast. Jailton Almeida is a beast. Might literally be the heavyweight champion at some point. So I think Anton Turkalj is far better than this record. As I mentioned, he's a fun, creative striker. He does have some power, and he will grapple. He will lean into the grappling. We saw it in the last fight. We saw it in his Contender Series fight. He is taking on Tyson Pedro. Tyson Pedro is also a grappler. I say also. I mean, Anton's not... It's funny because I categorize Anton as a striker, but he does grapple so much that I guess he's well-rounded, if you will, but... I think Anton prefers to strike and will turn to the grappling if he gets into some trouble, where Tyson is a grappler. He always wants to grapple no matter what. He did find some power in his hands, had a couple of knockouts before a short little layoff there, had a couple of knockouts, found the power, started to get things going. And then all of a sudden he comes out against Makdessi Bukauskas. His 2 takedowns look phenomenal. He's a grappler. All of a sudden he's got beautiful, clean, nice takedowns. They were nice takedowns. But then he slowed as the fight went on, and it just got away from him. His issue is he doesn't have the cardio to stick with that wrestling pace, to stick with that wrestling game plan. And the reality is, I think that's going to be his undoing here. I think that Anton Turkalj, with the high pressure, the stay in your face, if Anton initiates the grappling, now Tyson's working harder than he thought he would have to. And all of a sudden, Tyson's going to slow down, get gassed. I think this is a Tyson wins early or Tyson loses a decision. I think that's what happens here. You should probably pick your side because if Tyson wins early, he'll score really well. And if you like him to get it done, great. The layoff was after 2018. He lost to Shogun Hua, and then he came back, boom, power, and then he lost to Makdessi Bukauskas. But the reality is, when he does well, he does well. He is a finisher. Khalil Roundtree finished the win. Craig finished for a win. Safarov finished for a win. He is a finisher, and he's a tough enough guy that if he loses, he's losing decisions. I think he loses a decision. I like Anton. I'll probably have Anton, but I totally understand the people on the Tyson train because of how dangerous he can be early. Then we have Justin Tafa taking on Austen Lane. We just saw this fight, right? It was a no decision. Zeros across the board. That fight ended in 29 seconds, so we didn't get to see much. Justin Tafa, big, heavy-handed, powerful striker with a granite chin. He's got thunderous leg kicks, no takedowns anywhere. He's not getting taken down. He's not taking people down. He's just going to stand there. He's going to bomb with you. He's never going to be the most technical striker, but he might possibly be the most powerful in that cage, and he's definitely going to be the scarier one in the cage. But Justin Tafa's not looking to do much other than, let me see if I can get to your legs and then come to your head. Let me chase the head. Let me swing. You can beat him the same way Jared Vanderaa beat him. Jared Vanderaa just out-volumed him, as did Carlos Felipe. Just straight up volume. Look at this, 109 strikes, 74 strikes. If you can avoid his power and dance around, you can get to him. The difference between these two people who beat him, Vanderaa with the dancing and the 74 strikes, Felipe with the 109 strikes and the constant movement. The difference between them and Austen Lane is they have granite chins. Austen Lane is probably the most athletic heavyweight in the division. The guy played professional football. He was in the NFL, played at a high level. I think he played for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And he's very, very fast. He's got power. He's got great footwork. He's got good movement. He's a big athletic guy that is learning at a nice pace. But he can be chinny, and he's going to need to fight a perfect fight here. All of that being said, I personally think Justin Tafa wins this fight. He hits way too hard, and Austen wants to grapple more than anything. And just lunging in to try to grapple is what's going to get you slept. And not only that, but Justin Tafa has really good takedown defense. So you're going to lunge in to try to take down a guy that's hard to take down, and you're probably going to get hit on the way in, and that may not end well. With that being said, you need some exposure to Austen Lane in your large tournaments because Austen Lane is the more athletic fighter, is the more well-rounded fighter, is the faster fighter. He's just not the more powerful fighter, and he doesn't have the greatest chin. I think Justin Tafa wins. I'll have some exposure to him, and then I'll have some exposure to Austen as well because, frankly, if you're doing multiple lineups, this fight could go either way. Then we have Manel Kape taking on UFC newcomer Felipe Dos Santos. Manel Kape's a high-level striker. This guy's got fast, explosive hands, fast, explosive kicks. He has no issues chasing knockouts. He has fantastic counter-striking knockouts. He's a southpaw with great pressure, and he's going to bounce in and out of range really well. He can also wrestle. He's got some solid takedowns and some solid takedown defense. My only issue with Manel Kape is at times he's having too much fun in there. He'll play some games. He'll do some things that potentially could get him into some trouble and expose him when he doesn't want to be exposed. But the reality is Manel Kape lets his hands go, gets finishes, is a very, very high-level fighter. And at $9,300, I will have him in my lineup. He's fighting Felipe Dos Santos. This guy's making his UFC debut. He only has 7 fights in his career. He's a young guy, and he's a shoot-a-box fighter. That's the gym where Charles Oliveira comes from. Charles Oliveira is like the pinnacle of shoot-a-box. So I don't want you to think what I'm going to say about Felipe Dos Santos right now reflects on Charles Oliveira. Felipe Dos Santos is reckless. He fights like a shoot-a-box fighter where he will come forward and he will stay aggressive. He also gets hit. He also gets taken down. He overcommits. He can be countered. He can be wrestled. He is undefeated. We haven't really seen him in some trouble yet, but we also have only seen 7 fights out of him. I think Felipe Dos Santos is going to come in too aggressive, too anxious, be too shoot-a-box, and he's going to get lit up by Manel Kape. He's going to get countered. He's going to get dropped, potentially even taken down because Manel has takedowns. Certainly, Felipe Dos Santos is very, very dangerous. I just don't think it's going to matter here. I think Kape is too good. I think he's going to stay out of the danger, avoid the wildness, and take advantage of those openings. So Manel Kape, I think, is going to win this fight, and he will be in my lineup. Then we have the co-main event of the evening. We have Alexander Volkov taking on Tai Tuivasa. Alexander Volkov has fought the best in the division for a very long time. He's a well-rounded guy, mostly a striker. He can grapple also. He didn't have this like one-punch knockout power, and then all of a sudden, these last 2 fights, he's really put it together. Coming off 2 wins in a row, 2 one-punch knockouts in the first round. And if we work our way back, yes, he beat Overeem, he beat Harris, but those just felt very different. Because for the most part, he's a busy guy. He'll stay in your face. He'll work around. He'll try to stay active. And he never really seemed like this incredibly dangerous, like, here's a big, scary heavyweight. And lately, he seems to be putting that together. He did lose a long 5-round decision to Cyril Gane where he just was not fast enough, couldn't keep up. Then he had a slow, lumbering win over Marcin Tybura. Then Tom Aspinall took him down, smoked him. And then all of a sudden, here's the power boy, knocked out Rozenstruik, who's supposed to be a high-level striker. And then Romanov, who's supposed to be this great wrestler and is a great wrestler, but he was just a fat slob in this fight. Alexander Volkov, well-rounded guy. He's earned his stripes. Let me show you. He's fought a who's who, Verdum, Lewis, Hardy, Blades, Harris, Overeem, Gane. He's fought a who's who, multiple different champions. He is taking on Tai Tuivasa. Everybody's favorite fight. You can't have a bad thing to say about Tai Tuivasa. Guy shows up, smiles, lets his hands go, lets his legs go, tries to win these fights. Before this Gane fight, actually before the Lewis fight, it looked like he had a granite chin. And he does have a granite chin. Lewis cracked him though. And it was like, is he rocked? He is rocked. He was able to get through that and finish Lewis. Then Gane cracked him. He was rocked. This TKO was more body than head, but Gane cracked him, and then Pavlovich straight up put him out. And that is what worries me a little bit because all of a sudden our favorite iron chin fighter has some kinks in the armor and the chin is starting to give out on him. But he is a fast, fun, hard-hitting heavyweight who can knock anybody out on any given day. The problem is he's not the most well-rounded guy. He does get taken down. He doesn't have any takedowns. And, if you can use solid, clean technique, you can definitely have some luck. Him and Justin Tafa fight very similarly. Tai Tuivasa is definitely the better of the two, but Justin Tafa hits way harder, and he's harder to take down. So Tai Tuivasa is faster, he's accurate, he's pretty composed, but we're seeing some kinks in the armor with the chin, and we know he can be taken down. I don't know if Volkov's going to take him down, but I certainly do think Volkov's going to win. And Volkov, you may want to consider him for your lineup. The problem is, outside of his last couple of fights, I wouldn't have assumed If I look at Volkov's last 2 fights, wow, he's knocking people out. If I look at Tuivasa's last couple of fights, wow, his chin isn't holding up. Logic would say Volkov, the guy who's been knocking people out, is going to knock out the guy who's looked a little chinny recently. This is a different fight. Volkov doesn't hit nearly as hard as Gane or Pavlovic. So I don't know if I'm going to... I do think Volkov wins. I'm pretty confident in that. I don't know if he will be in my lineup. Certainly, you should have a couple of large tournament entries with some Tai Tuivasa in there because... I mean, big man can throw down, and if he connects, we have seen Volkov dominate a fight and then get knocked out with 1 minute left. It wouldn't be the first time that has happened. And then we have the main event of the evening, and I'm going to say something that if you play DraftKings and you're familiar with DraftKings is not controversial. If you don't, and you're just watching this for the full card breakdown portion and not the DraftKings insight portion of the video, you're going to be like, what? Israel Adesanya should not be in your lineup. Israel Adesanya is $9,700, and he doesn't score that well. He just knocked out Alex Pereira in the second round and scored 96 points. He didn't even cover his... If he had a $9,700 salary, he wouldn't have even covered that. 58 points, 86, 76, 85, 35. He doesn't get up over 100 points until you go back 3 full years to where he fought Costa, who showed up hungover. Remember, he was hungover on wine? You have to go all the way back to the Costa fight to get to 100 points. The reality is Israel Adesanya may end up being the greatest middleweight of all time. He's got insanely accurate striking. He has incredible footwork. And what he's able to do in that cage is nothing short of spectacular. He's going to win this fight. He's going to dominate this fight. I am incredibly, incredibly confident in him to get a win. But DraftKings scores for significant strikes in numbers, takedowns, knockdowns. He doesn't land that many significant strikes. He's not a very busy guy. He's not going to shoot a takedown. And I don't necessarily think he finishes Sean Strickland. So I think the knockout is sort of off the table. But if it's not off the table, it may look something like this, where he's a step behind, he's losing the volume game, and then lands that big punch. He is taking on Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland's just a blue-collar striker. His head doesn't move. He's got no real defense. He's just going to come forward, throw his hands, stay busy, stay in your face. He's not a bitch. He's not going to quit. He will be there. If he decides to wrestle, the last time we really saw him wrestling was against Uriah Hall. He worked in 4 takedowns in that decision. He may come out here and do the same thing. He should come out here and do the same thing. And you can see how well he scored in that fight, 144 points. But the reality is, I don't think he will. Anytime we really want him to work in takedowns and stick to that game plan, he doesn't do it. He get a random takedown here or there, but if he's going to try to beat Izzy, he needs to, it needs to be Sean Nurmagomedov needs to be the approach. Nonstop wrestling. And even then, we can't just pretend like Izzy's the easiest guy in the world to take down. He's got some decent takedown defense. Everybody else has also tried to do the same. I think Israel Adesanya wins this fight. I am not spending the $9,700 on him, which Sean Strickland all of a sudden might be worth it in your lineup. He put up 68 points in a loss to Jared Cannonier. 68 points. His salary is only $6,500, which means you would have made the right decision. Typically, you want to get your money, right? If you're $7,000, you want to get 70 points. If you're $9,000, you at least want 90 points. So in a loss, Sean Strickland may actually cover his nut. And if you're chasing some of these larger, heavy favorites other than Izzy, you may want him in your lineup. Guys, that is the breakdown. Go to WeWantPicks.com, become a premium member, unlock the tools, the insight, and information, and join these premium members in giant winnings. Over $320,000 in the last 3 months have been put on the board by premium members only, and it's because we have the best DraftKings ownership projections. We have the optimizer that builds lineups for you, and we give you our detailed breakdowns, analytics, information. We give you everything you have ever needed to build a winning lineup, including the tool that actually builds it for you. And let me remind you, that was the context. The $51,000 lineup from last week came from B Nasty, and B Nasty said, I literally did my lineups this morning. I picked my 3 and the optimizer did the rest. WeWantPicks.com, click become a member at the top. It is only $10 a month.